Welcome to Voice of Cards. You are about to take the first steps of your adventure. Through a realm of sword and sorcery you will travel, battling bloodthirsty monsters as you strive to realize your ambitions. I have every faith you will accomplish great things here. I? I am merely a witness to your exploits. Now then, your departure draws nigh. May your journey be a safe one.
Voice of Cards: The Isle Dragon Roars is a 2021 RPG directed by Mayasa Mimura. Developed by game studio Alum and published by Square Enix, Voice of Cards is a brand new IP masterminded by Yoko Taro. Additionally, the game is scored by a great team led by Keiichi Okabe, and the art is done by none other than the incomparable Kimihiko Fujisaka. The gameplay and presentation is inspired directly by tabletop RPGs, even going so far as to have a singular voice actor play the narrator and all of the characters. Although the story itself is rather straightforward, it does feature some subversive twists and multiple endings, as are common in a game with Yoko Taro attached. Overall, the game is an interesting and fun love letter to tabletop RPGs and excels in almost everything it attempts. The music and voice of Cards is as good as you'd expect it to be from a team led by Keiichi Okabe. His distinct style shines through in its vocal-led transitionary track Pursuing the Dragon, consistently making me more excited for the game's following chapters, especially towards the end of the narrative. Pulsating Power by Shotaro Seo is a battle theme I never got tired of, its string and piano melodies coalescing into a driving tune that feels like adventure. Oliver Good's Adventure of the Would-Be Hero is a jovial tune that would constantly get stuck in my head, often accenting the more comedic and lighthearted moments of the narrative. But also, on the other hand, Good's other song, Forbidden Magic, is foreboding and dark, but features a beautiful, subdued vocal performance that really elevates the more intense scenes it's featured in. The fact that this team was able to pretty effortlessly manage to make music that is both enchanting and memorable is something that makes me look forward to the rest of the work that their studio Monica is going to be putting out in the future. Needless to say, these songs are just so good I couldn't help but gush over them. I love them so much. I wish it was easier to listen to the soundtrack. Squeenix, please put it up on YouTube or Apple Music or Spotify, please. Bandcamp. I'll buy it on Bandcamp. Maybe Amazon Music? I think it's on Amazon Music. I'll actually check that. Another aspect of design that this game really excels in is in its presentation. Voice of Cards presentation is one of the things that greatly separates it from the pack of modern turn-based RPGs. Although the game also includes anime-esque character designs, Fujisaka's art still stands out, even amongst his past works, as the character designs feel a bit more stylized than his previous ones, at least in my experience. The use of vibrant colors, even if sparsely found on the character's design, still adds a lot of charm to the character themselves and makes them stand out more. For example, the first time I noticed Vince's painted nails was an extremely delightful treat, especially as someone who likes to do my own from time to time. The bright colors contrast with his dark garb and gray hair, but are subtle enough to add a bit more life to his design while also supporting the game's overall whimsical and picaresque atmosphere. Also, just like Akihiko Yoshida in Vagrant Story, Fujisaka made sure that his art packed a punch with the way he provided a decent amount of fan service for various tastes. He definitely made sure that the guys and gals could have their fun with this one. However, as fun as the character designs are to look at, the aspect of the art that blew me away the most was how they animated the different cards used throughout the game. They could have easily just limited the card animations to shuffling and minute movements, but instead I feel like they really went for the gusto. Each character's attack or ability they could use in battle has two unique animations, one for a regular hit and another for a critical hit. These animations brought me pretty much a lot of great delight and made me nostalgic for the days I'd be hoping for a critical attack and Fire Emblem for the Game Boy Advance, as I would constantly be using moves I normally wouldn't in hopes of just seeing its critical animation during battle. Voice of Cards combat is fairly straightforward, opting for a traditional turn-based battle system with some customization options. Although there are only a few skills and abilities that could be swapped out per character, each one is unique and adds a good amount of variety and flexibility in the way that your party operates. Additionally, the inclusion of character unique passive abilities is a great boon to the player, arguably making an already relatively easy game even easier. That's not to say that the difficulty of the game is a negative though, as it seems that increased accessibility is a core design philosophy for the dev team. The game features some wonderful little additions and quality of life improvements that I would love to see available in like every RPG moving forward. One being an easily activated high speed option, which helped subsequent playthroughs, and the second, my favorite, being how clear data affects all your saves, so getting multiple endings would take you like 1 hour instead of like 4. The game's dungeon design is also really nice, especially towards the end of the game. Small features like spike cards causing damage to the party or accidentally falling down a floor in a tower because you misclicked the table instead of a floor tile makes me really feel like the devs put some thought into how to make the game feel a bit more unique, and how the cards, or lack thereof in the second example, could help make that feeling happen. However, the game's most effective way of conveying that tabletop feel would be the random events that could happen anywhere on the world map. These events involve making a quasi-informed decision or rolling your dice in order to react to certain random happenings that could affect the party. While there is a fun variety of them in this game, I would like to see more in the future titles with more options in order to really encourage exploration. All in all, the game really sold me on the concept of playing and storytelling through the cards, but I do wish we got more opportunities to make strange decisions, like ask the queen to join us on our quest, or to traverse an entire dungeon in the dark despite the narrator like asking you to bring a torch into the cavern. Speaking of the narrator, I thought that having a single voice actor for the entire game would be like relentlessly boring, but Todd Haberkorn as the game master proved me extremely wrong. Haberkorn manages to fit the game's varying tones with equal measure, confidently relishing in both the game's whimsy as well as in the game's gravitas. I genuinely hope he comes back for the future installments in the series. Also, I'd be incredibly remiss to forget to mention the incredibly addicting card game minigame that's featured in Voice of Cards. It's this neat little thing that has varying levels of difficulty that adds more layers of strategy to its fairly simple core concept, but these inclusions of these layers make the game a bit more hectic and even more addicting. That's actually, now that I'm thinking about it and reading it out loud, not a very good description of this game at all, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you how to play this game, like teach it to you like I was an older brother for like 3 minutes out of like what's gonna probably be a 5-minute video. So sorry. You should play it though. I think Squeenix should make it like a friggin' like standalone game. Like honestly, on its own, it'd be really fun if they did it like see Project Red did with Gwent. Just make some bank off it. Maybe even get some physical packs out there. I'd buy them. You know, I'd try to teach people then. What was I saying? Yeah, yo, it's a good game. You should try playing it. Yeah. As for the game's story, its whimsical, devil-may-care opening attitude blesses the game with a lighthearted tone that really sets up the feeling of a short tabletop campaign. Luckily though, the story is long enough to where we get to experience a little bit more than a standard dragon hunting story. The game's humor is very reminiscent of Drakengard 3 for myself, more so in execution though, than content. Like I would read and hear the jokes in the game and I could just imagine Taro's Emil mask wryly grinning at the player. However, the biggest feeling I get from the story is that it functions mostly like a Yoko Taro weapon story made into its own game. Like many of the weapon stories in both the Drakengard and Nier series, Voice of Cards starts with a very straightforward, practically overdone premise, and by the end utilizes the player's expectations to make the narrative twists feel refreshing. That isn't to say that this game is an entirely unique narrative experience. However, despite not being a completely fresh, original take on this kind of story, it still pulls it off well enough to make me expect even greater things as the series continues, especially once the developers feel a bit more at home with utilizing the narrative framework of tabletop storytelling. Although I mention Taro a lot because of his involvement, I should reiterate that the game is actually directed by Maasa Mimura, and his direction shows a lot of promise, especially because he was able to help balance the story's contrasting tones rather deftly for a relatively unknown director. All in all, Voice of Cards is a solid starting step for a brand new IP with a unique concept. While its execution isn't perfect, it brings a lot of variety to the table and it has an immense opportunity for growth and experimentation. I know there's another game out already, so I can't wait to eventually get my hands on it and give it a spin because The Isle Dragon Roars was such a wonderful time. With all this being said, though, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you all again sometime soon. So thanks for stopping by, thanks for listening, and be safe.
Now then, this is the end of your long journey, which means you and I must regrettably part ways. I hope we meet again in the world of Voice of Cards. It's been a pleasure.